Hello and welcome to the show. So over the recent years it has become more and more popular for manufacturers to have their own in-house tuning companies. Mercedes have AMG, Nissan have Nismo, and the Audis have the RS cars. The most famous of them all though is the BMW M division. And this is the car that started it all, the 3-litre CSL. It was the first car the M division worked on, built as a homologation special to allow it to go racing in the European Touring Car Championship. And it was a very successful touring car. It won 6 European titles, it won Le Mans in its class, and it also won in DTM. It's not even a bad looking car, and yes, it is relatively old and it's never going to keep up with today's sort of modern touring cars. It is still not that bad. Judging by that noise, that would be a M1.
This is the BMW M1. Now, this was BMW's first adventure into the world of supercars, and it was also their last. By being its last, it was also one of their rarest cars, with only 456 being produced from 1978 to 1981. This car had a 277 brake horsepower engine, at 243 pounds-feet of torque, so it wasn't a slow car by any means. This could keep up with Porsches and such like at the time. As well as the M1 Pro car, BMW went on to make race versions of this, including the DRM Pro car, which Nelson Piquet drove in 1980 at Nürburgring. This is a fantastic car to drive. It is so planted. It is one of the best handling cars ever made. Now, BMW knew that this was going to be a good car, and it wiped the floor with everything it went in the race version.
A couple of years later and the M6 came along. This took the engine from an M1 and put it into the chassis of a 6 Series. This made for a 280 odd horsepower coupe, and while the official top speed was 158, a standard one reportedly got to 171 during a race. That's a 30-year-old luxury coupe doing 170. The M5 is equally nuts, again with the engine from the M1, and that was put into a 4-door family saloon. No surprise then that it was the fastest saloon car there was at the time.
This is the E30 M3. Now, this was BMW's first look into the M3 model, taking a standard M3 and putting various bits on it to make it look bigger and faster and quicker. This had a 215 brake horsepower engine. It only weighed 2,800 pounds give or take, which means it was incredibly light, and it was rear-wheel drive to make it more fun for the driver. Now, the hell are you doing? We're trying to make a properly good video here, and you're just doing donuts of what looks like a purple M3. The hell is wrong with you?
It is a very purple M3. This is the 97 M3. It was a replacement for the M3 that Daniel has there. This has 321 horsepower, making it a lot more powerful and a lot faster. However, these days they are relatively cheap and relatively easy to find, so they are rather popular in racing series. You'll see many of these racing at sort of club level, and they are very exciting to watch because they're rear-wheel drive and fairly light, and there's all sorts of action going on with them.
Further along down the line in the BMW history, they went on to produce 2 more pimped up versions of the M5, the 95 and the O3 models. Now, these were both ridiculously powerful, ridiculously fast, and just bonkers in almost every way. The 95 M5 had 335 brake horsepower and went from 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, which was incredible for the time. The O3 M5 had even more power with 394. It was a little bit heavier, but it still went from 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds, which is insane.
It wasn't just the largest saloons and coupes that the M division worked on, they also worked on some of the smaller sports cars with these two, the Z3 and the Z4. The Z3 M car wasn't actually that powerful, only 240 horsepower, which is less than the original M5s. However, it does make up for it with a lack of weight. It also is rather tail happy, which makes it a very interesting car to drive. The Z4 does get a lot more power thanks to the engine from an M3, which makes it rather fast, 0 to 60 time of 4.3 seconds. Considerably beating its main rivals, the Porsches Boxster and Cayman. It's also a great handling car, making it a serious alternative to the Porsches, and it looks the part and it sounds the part. So it is a pretty serious rival to the Porsches, although there is always a problem with the Z3 and the Z4 is that they always have the sort of woman's car image about them, although the power and the sound kind of makes up for it with these two.
Here are the two latest M3s that BMW decided to make, the E46 and the E90. The E46 had 338 brake horsepower and went from 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds, so it was a really quick car for its time. It had a straight 6 3.2 litre engine, and it also went on to race in Le Mans with the M3 GTR. The E90 M3 had 414 brake horsepower, so quite a big improvement in power. It was also lighter, a bigger engine, and had a V8.
Bringing us right up to date with these two, the latest M5 and M6. Both are utterly bonkers as you would expect. The M5 has a twin-turbo V8, producing 560 horsepower. That's Ferrari sort of numbers in a four-door family saloon car. If you remove the limiter, you'll be reaching 190. The M6 is even faster with a V10 that produces 500 horsepower. It can hit over 200 miles an hour without the limiter. That's some serious performance. It also looks rather fantastic, I think, even with the silly bits of carbon fibre such as the roof. Out of these two, the M6 is the one I would have. However, it is important to remember though that while these are very fast, they aren't supercars. They certainly aren't light, and they can be rather difficult to drive, as Daniel is kind of demonstrating there. Yeah, with a bit of sideways stuff.
They are not the easiest cars to drive. They're not supercars, like Alice said, by any means. They are just fast four-door saloon cars.
Now, if you were to ask us which of the M cars were our favourite, we'd both agree that it is the M1. So it's only right that we put the M1 around our track and see what lap time it gets. Now, it is quite an old supercar, so don't expect it to be sort of mixing it at the top. However, it will be interesting to see whereabouts it fits in with some of the other cars that are on our leaderboard.
Right, so here we are for the lap of the M1. Now, this should be, like Alex said, not the fastest lap in the world, but still an incredible lap for the car it is. So, coming down to the first corner, this is a really quick car for the time, as I said before. It is just brilliant in every way. So, coming down the first corner, incredibly planted. I mean, me and Alex both have driven this car, and it is stuck to the road. Oh, maybe not there, a little bit of sliding, but nothing much. Coming into Chicago, hard on the brakes. Nosedives a little bit, but not that much. No signs of understeer, getting the tail kicked out a bit as well. Nearly on the grass. Right, now coming down to Hammerhead. This will be a real test for the car to see what it can do. I mean, it is gold, but it should handle this corner quite nicely. Nose diving again. Coming down Hammerhead, is there any understeer? No, not at all. Little bit of oversteer on the exit. A lot of oversteer on the exit, in fact. Right, coming down to the follow through, it's all got 277 brake horsepower, 3.5 litre 6-cylinder engine. All going on the slippy stuff there. That is really quick through the follow through there. Right, coming up to the penultimate turn. Coming in incredibly quick there. Clips the apex really nice, no signs of squirreling or anything. Coming out of the last corner, little bit of oversteer over the curb and across the line. Now, the time of the M1, as we said, it's not going to be the greatest time in the world, but it should be a good time for for the age of the car and what it is. So it did it in 1:23.6. Now that's between the Dodge Charger and the Subaru Impreza. That's pretty good for the age.
Yeah, it's not bad when you consider the Impreza was like made in 2008, I think.
2008.
It's
yeah,
not bad
so
for an old car. I think quite a lot of where the BMW loses time is it doesn't have any rear downforce. And while it is a brilliant handling car, it is liable to sort of losing a bit of a rear grip through some of the faster corners. But it's still not a bad time for the M1. That's about wraps up for this episode. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you have any challenges or cars that you'd like to see us do reviews on or whatever, then leave them in the comments. But until next time, goodbye.